Hello, and welcome to the Abundology podcast. I'm here today with Justine Bloome, who is a meditation instructor and mindfulness advocate. And you were here before, and we had the best conversation. So I'm so excited that you're back, especially to talk about meditation and journaling and how everything has really shifted in this time of COVID. So thank you.
Thank you so much for having me back. I'm so excited to be on your podcast again and to see you, of course.
And I will put the link to our last podcast in the little podcast write-up. So if people want to listen to that, to the previous one with us, they can do that too.
Okay.
So can you just quickly tell us how you kind of got started in meditation and how it's changed your life?
Yeah, absolutely. The short story is in 2010, I was about a year into running my first business on my own. So I had stepped out of corporate life, and a year in, I was completely burnt out. And, I'd gone from corporate life into what felt like working 24/7. And at that stage, I think my son was maybe like 7. And so I was also doing the single parenting thing as well. So totally burnt out. And prior to that, I had really thought meditation's not for me because I was paid for my thoughts. Like I was a marketing strategist, and the whole idea of emptying my mind of thoughts felt really crazy.
Especially when that's your job, what you're getting paid for. Yeah.
Exactly. And so it really did take this breaking point for me to be like, okay, something's got to change. Maybe I'll try this thing out. And unusual Justine style, I jumped in the deep end. I went to a 5-day silent meditation retreat where I took a vow of silence and meditated like 6 times a day. It was
Right off the bat? Oh my goodness.
that is so me though, to be like, okay, I'm going to do this thing. And I just
Jumped in.
yeah. So what that taught me though is I can quieten my mind, and that there's really amazing benefits of doing so, and that it actually made me more creative. It helped me with my work. What I think I had in my mind before about meditation was that it was just about that sort of eyes closed moment. But really, it's the impact that it has on the whole time you have your eyes open that I didn't expect. And so I must admit, for a few years, it was a sometimes thing, shall we say.
Yes.
But really, in the last 5 years, it's become a practice for me, and it's something that I've come to rely on, like brushing my teeth. And I really notice when I haven't done it, just like when you notice when you haven't brushed your teeth and you're like, oh, I have fairy teeth today.
Yeah, it's so true. Now, you jumped in, of course, all in, but there are so many ways to ease into meditation if you haven't done it before. So what do you recommend if no, somebody has never meditated before, where they start?
Such a great question, because what I did is not what I recommend to my students. Yeah, I mean, that's a really inaccessible way of starting meditation, right? So to me, meditation is one of the most accessible things we can be doing for ourselves, one of the most accessible forms of self-care. And it sounds like I'm simplifying it too much, and like, why would you need an instructor for this? But it is as simple as closing your eyes for, I say 20 minutes. Some people say 10, but for me, 20 minutes is a good amount of time. And just being in stillness with yourself and not being attached to your thoughts. So part of the instruction that I give is really, it's the how to. There are techniques and methods and ways that can help you to kind of detach from the thoughts that really keep us going day in, day out, and how you can sort of sink beneath that and drop into more of a state of being. But if having an instructor isn't accessible to you, one of the easiest ways is just to be with your breath. I think it was Eckhart Tolle who said, it's actually quite impossible to focus on your breath and have your mind elsewhere. If you are truly focusing on your inhale, having it settle into your lungs and your stomach, and then focusing on your exhale, you are immediately snapped into the present moment. And that is meditation. It is, sustained awareness of the present moment. And that's really what you can do for yourself, like once or twice a day, and it's that simple.
Yeah, it is that simple. And I also want to bring up what you said earlier is when I first started meditating, I've been meditating about 20 years now. When I first started, it was almost like that high you get, when you find yourself in the void, and it feels so good. It's just such a great feeling. I thought mistakenly that was the whole point of meditation. Now, as I'm older, I realize that meditation allows me to so much easier to control my thoughts and my mind. And if I'm stressed out, immediately going to that breath, I'm not kidding, within 30 seconds, you are back to a better place. And so it's that work that you're doing in your mind that lasts so much longer than the 10 or 20 minutes that you spend doing it.
It absolutely is. I think I did a calculation once because twice a day, 20 minutes is kind of, my standard practice. And I worked out that that's 3% of my day.
Oh,
And
wow.
that the impact on the other 97%, like that's 100% why I do it. So
Yes, yes.
when I remind myself when I'm like, oh, I'm too busy or I need to do this other thing, I'm like, it's 3% of your day. It's like,
Yeah.
it's an investment in the exponential impact it has on everything else. Everything else expands. And I love that, you talk about that beautiful feeling of like, I call it dropping in. And when you are just so far distanced from your thoughts that it's almost like time and space is gone. And it can feel intimidating when you talk about meditation that way to people who are starting out because they're like, wait, why didn't it happen for me? Because it
Yes.
does take practice. But as you say, it really is training the brain and the autonomic nervous system to be on a more even keel. And that breath that you mentioned, just as you were saying it, I just had this visual come up of, when your computer just like stops working, like everything's frozen and like things are going really slow and you get really, really frustrated. And if you just hard reset, just like turn the thing off, turn it back on again, it's like brand new.
Yes.
And that's what the breath is for me. It's just like, okay, yeah, none of this matters.
And I love that visual because we have all been there. I've been so busy and my computer's not fast enough. And why aren't you fast enough? If I would just take literally the 30 seconds it took to restart the computer, everything would be so smooth. When you put it like that, it just makes so much sense.
Yes. Yeah. We are, I mean, this is a computer, let's be honest.
Yeah, that's true. It's so true. And I also, the point that you made of getting to, what did you call it? The void, the
Yeah, I call it
dropping
dropping
in,
in.
dropping in. Yes,
Yeah, to
perfect.
me, it's one of the ways that I talk to my students about it is like the ocean. So when you're kind of bubbling along at the top of the ocean, there's like the rip and the water is like choppy on the top and there's a lot going on. And then as soon as you like submerge even a little bit, like everything gets a little bit quieter. You can still hear the ripples above you, but then the more you drop in, like the deeper you get, the quieter and more sort of expansive it becomes. And those ripples at the top are like this very distant, faint sound that you can't really hear anymore. And it's still all flowing, there's still thoughts, but they just feel slower or more abstract or further away, if you like.
Yes.
That to me is when I know I've had a very gratifying meditation.
Yes. And also, I appreciate your point of that doesn't happen every time when you meditate. So you could possibly think you're doing it wrong. Like you said, I'm not there. When people that have been meditating a long time know that that is just not every single time do you get to that spot, you know.
A really good point that you're raising because, and this is one of the things I do talk to my students about, we don't use the words good or bad with our meditations. Like we sort of just like outlaw that. We use the terms gratifying and ungratifying
Oh, I love that.
because those ungratifying meditations where it's really thought filled and you just feel like you just can't let go of those thoughts, or your mind's really busy, they still have a purpose. They still have a job. And I like to say that it's an indication that you are de-stressing. So
Ah,
you are literally letting go of the stress, almost like if a pipe was blocked and like really full and it was about to burst, but then you like release the valve and then all this steam comes rushing out. And that steam of those thoughts, and like, yes, they come rushing out, and it might feel like, oh, that was a terrible meditation. It's like, no, okay, it didn't feel as great as other ones, but how do you feel now? Like after you've spent that 20 minutes of just letting all that steam like get out of your head,
yes.
how do you feel now? And that actually leads me to the point around the combination of meditation and journaling. That I think is such a special, unique combination that I don't think we talk about as much as I think we should be talking about, because I do think there's so much power in the combination of these two things.
And you actually have this brand new, beautiful meditation journal. Do you have there? Oh, and you have the blue one, just the plain cover too, I
Yeah,
think,
so this
huh?
is the box.
Got
And
it.
then inside you'll get a little sheet to explain, but then the journal itself is just plain, like the ocean, like I described earlier.
I love the color. I love the color.
And then and there's a little pop in the front. But yeah, this is a beautiful journal that I've collaborated with Baron Fig. I don't know if you know Baron Fig.
I don't.
They create the most beautiful, well designed, gorgeous journals. So I've just been so grateful to be able to partner with them on this, because even though like I wrote a lot of the back, which is the journal guide, and had a real hand in like how would this be laid out, they've done such an incredible job with the design, with all the just the little icons, and the way that you're not just capturing what your meditation was like, but some quantitative data as well. So the qualitative and the quantitative data,
Hmm.
which I think for me has always been really helpful in moderating and managing my progress, or reflecting on what's working, what's not working. When I've had a week of really ungratifying meditations, like let's like dig in, like what's happening that I can remove.
Yes.
So yeah, it's, I mean, ultimately I say this is the journal that I've always wanted. It's the way that I journal with my meditations. So yeah, just so delighted for this to be able to be shared with other people now.
So when you're doing the meditation, is the practice to do the meditation and then after you're done, do the journaling about it?
Yeah, that's the way I do it. There's sort of two components to it. There's the, like, what's your experience when your eyes are closed, journaling and reflection? And because, as you know, there's like an immediate benefit. Like we said, like the hard reset of the breathing before. You can go into a meditation in the morning feeling one way, having like, not feeling very clear, or feeling low energy, or, just being in a bad mood. And And within 20 minutes, like you've like course corrected that, and suddenly you feel like you just had a deep sleep, and you have like the brain fog goes away. You have those immediate benefits which can be quantified, but you can also reflect on what happened in your meditation. So, was it thought filled? I like to, for me personally, I like to reflect on my eyes closed experiences with a little bit of objectivity. So, I kind of describe it like I would a painting on the wall. And that way, I'm not trying to judge it. I'm not trying to sort of bring meaning to it. It's just what happened. And then at the end of the week, there is a page in this journal, and I like to do this once a week, sometimes more often, where I'm really paying attention and noticing what are the things that happened this week that I know I benefited from my meditation. So, did I have a tough conversation with someone and it went way better than I expected? And it was because I was really like centered and responding, not reacting. did I have a really stressful day, but I kind of got through it without really losing my cool? Like, I like to attribute those moments to my meditation practice because
Yes.
then it keeps me motivated to never
Yes.
miss a session.
Yeah, agreed. And then also the physical benefits too. My sleeping, am I sleeping better and deeper and more restful? Am I more aware of my eating? I think once again, we think of the 20 minutes you're meditating as the thing, but it's not. That is not it at all. It benefits your
Everything else.
whole entire life.
Yeah. Like as I said, like at work, I'm way more creative when I've had my meditation in the morning. It just sort of flows, not from my brain, from another place.
Yeah.
And so there's like the creativity piece. There's obviously the stress management piece. And I think for a lot of people, that's how they find their way into meditation is like, I need something to help me with stress. Once you get through that like stress management, almost like the band-aid kind of phase, and it becomes the vitamin, you know, that's when you start to see relationships improving, coping with stresses and demands that much more easily. I find that the distance between, let's call it a triggering event with a little case T, a triggering event and my awareness of my reaction to that event is like significantly diminished now. And I can take that deep breath,
Yes.
calm my nervous system, and then respond rather than react. Like the distance now, that used to, when I was younger, that used to be like a week.
Yes.
And now it's like a few seconds, a few moments where I'm like, wait, oh, hang on.
That's so true. Now, there are so many, and I can't think of one that doesn't do this. Let's talk about Fortune 500 CEOs and
Mm.
thought leaders. Everyone that I know that is um, one of the big leaders in our world right now meditates. And I think what you said, a lot of us got there through being stressed out and having to deal with our stress. But meditation makes you such a better leader. So
Yes.
yes, I know that this is something we've talked about before is leadership and take in and how meditation can help you in that area.
Yes. And I feel like, let's put it in the context of the current times we're in. And I think there is this paradigm shift in what we're seeing occur in leadership. And this notion of, I think we've all been caught up in the 3D for so long, the hustle, the striving, the achievement, the wealth-driven success metrics.
Yes.
All of that has really been modulating our world for so long. And these last few months, I think, have been not just a hard reset, but like new software has been installed.
So true.
And I think people have really gone, wow, all those things I really thought mattered, maybe they don't matter so much. And we're kind of questioning the way we interact with one another, particularly the way, we live our lives from a career perspective. And I think the leaders that I've really respected in the way that they've stepped up during this time, they have more of a 4D or 5D leadership approach. It is leadership for the collective. It is stripping away competition and knowing that when the collective is taken care of, all boats rise, and that everybody has their own unique DNA that they bring to the table. And even though they might all have the same job title, it doesn't mean that they all do it the same way or at the same pace or have the same ambitions. I think that expanded awareness that this kind of like Zoom interaction has brought to life has just been so heartening and heartwarming for me to be like, oh, okay, 5D leadership is finally going to have its moment in the sun.
Yeah. And thanks to the time out that we've had. If you've been in the spiritual world for a long time, we've heard since 12, 12, 12 about switching from a 3D world to a 5D world, and what did that look like? And even the idea of visualizing it was a little tough. Like, how do
Mhm.
you make the switch? How does this work? So having this collective time out for the majority of the world allowed us to make that shift.
Yeah,
And I don't think there's any going back now. Thank goodness.
I really hope not. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
been the ultimate disruption. Human beings are at our core meaning makers and pattern makers. Like, we look for patterns everywhere and we try to make meaning of it. And the pattern that we were in, it wasn't working for so many of us, but there was not as enough of a, let's global disruption to that pattern for us to reevaluate it. It was happening in pockets,
Yes.
and it has, as you say, it has been for quite some time. I just think it's so nourishing and refreshing to be like, oh, wait, everybody suddenly had to go into isolation and really reflect on slowing down, what's important, what needs to be done today. Because let's be honest, our nervous systems were fried. We were all like living on with low level fear.
Yes, it was nature's way, and I'm not diminishing COVID at all. Clearly, it is a horrible thing, but it
I,
was nature's way of like, hey, time out, you guys. You've screwed this up. Let's start, let's start over and
yeah,
see what's meaningful and important to you. Yeah,
Mother Nature rebooted the computer. It was like, I'm installing new
exactly.
software.
Installing new software. So true. I love what you say also about leadership is an act of rebellion.
Mm.
And that right now, too, is if you want to change the world, yes, there's some of us that are out there every night, Black Lives Matters, we're protesting, but another form of that is leadership and actually implementing these ideas in different ways of being.
Yeah, my qualifier on that leadership piece is it's embodied leadership.
Oh, that's
And
good.
so, and to me, embodied leadership is more than just acting with your mind and making decisions that, rationally make a lot of sense. Embodied leadership, it really is heart and mind leadership. It is giving value to intuition and the feminine energy of leadership just as much as we have put emphasis on the masculine energy of leadership for so long now. And I've watched and I have experienced, because I also did this early in my career, a lot of women just like mold themselves and fit into that very masculine energy. And when I think about creativity, for example, the workplace is just built on this 24/7 kind of model. We talked about this in our last podcast. The feminine energy of leadership really allows breathing room for creativity and knows that there's a cycle to it, there's a season to it. And that, I think, is what 5D and embodied leadership really allows us to do, is to honor that not everything comes from the brain. There is like inherent intelligence within us that is not ego led, that is not even synapses in our brain telling us what to do. There's so many electromagnetic forces in our gut and in our heart that are just as potent as the brain. They just have a different language of communication. And I think that notion of embodied leadership and slowing down and making decisions that are, come after a meditation session, not, oh, we've got to get it right straight away, and being really quick to get to the answer. That, I think, has been life changing for me, for teams that I've run, and I'm noticing it more and more the more people I talk to. So I'm hoping that this will be the era of embodied leadership.
I love that. Now, you do a studio for the soul. Do you talk about embodied leadership in that? Can you tell us a little bit about what that is?
Yes. Yeah, studio. It's my new baby. It's a circle, a mentor circle, or a series of mentor circles for primarily for solopreneurs or people who are finding their way through this new paradigm of self-leadership. Now, that doesn't mean that if you're in corporate that you can't get something out of studio. You absolutely could, but it really is about how you lead yourself first. Now, for solopreneurs, that applies directly to our businesses.
Right.
So, of course, there is this applicability, if you like, to how we use the tools that are in studio. There's the feminine energy of the clarity building exercises like meditation, like journaling, other ritual kind of based practices that we can bring into business, even though they've been shunned from business for a very long time because of that masculine energy. That time, like I said, that investment of time in those practices can bring so much more clarity, creativity, and just ease in our businesses when we are in that masculine energy. So studio, it's kind of like mentor circles meets like a yoga studio for your business.
I like
Like,
it.
yeah.
I like it.
So
Yeah.
it's been a wonderful exercise. I started sort of the prototype of it when we all first went into lockdown and had 20 wonderful women from all over the world. And at that time, we were meeting twice a week because, we suddenly were kind of shocked into isolation. So it was this beautiful way of connecting. Now it's morphed into something that is, less frequent, but equally as potent. And the feedback on it has been really extraordinary. I think a lot of realizations of just how much, as solopreneurs, we had been quite individualistic in our approach to business, and the power of community and the peer mentorship, what that can bring to us personally in terms of self-care, but also to our businesses.
And also to money. And I don't want to skip over this point. This is, what I talk about a lot. If you are in a hurry or trying to get it done, or it's the second that you go into hurry, you are in a lack mentality. I don't have enough time. I don't have enough resources. I don't have enough money. So just the act of calming that shit down
Yes.
puts you in a more abundant spot, and then you are attracting the money versus going out searching for something that you believe that you don't have. So
So beautifully put. Oh my gosh, Renee. Yes. That we kind of go on a bit of a journey. It is a cycle. And, initially it's really about self compassion. And that starting with that self compassion opens the doorway to some letting go and some surrendering and the feeling of receiving and not having to go after every single thing. Like you can just be in receiver mode
yes,
and wait.
yes.
And I think it's sometimes shocking to so many of us when it does just appear. And we're like, wait, I didn't have to do
I don't
anything.
have to do anything. Yeah. I want to say maybe 5 years ago, I made the decision of like, I just want to get paid to be.
Mm,
That's how I want to make my living, is just I be and money arrives. So I'm finally at that point. I just get to be me and talk about stuff I like, and people come and talk to me about stuff they like. And it's just like, what a wonderful way to live versus, not that there's anything wrong with striving. I have done that for many, many decades in my life, but I like this way of being so much more.
oh, it's so true. I
Yeah.
had something beautiful this morning actually, and I was before we got on the call crafting an Instagram post around it. But this notion of how much time in our lives we spend trying to get to know ourselves and like kind of
Yes.
find ourselves, and how much easier it is when we just let go of that and say, I'm just going to be myself.
Yes.
Like let's just allow being. That's
Yes.
what I love about meditation is it's just being, not doing. It's training our every cell in our body what it feels like to just be. And it seeps out into every aspect of life.
Yeah. I also just want to briefly bring up the point that there's more than one way to meditate. And when you've been doing it for a while, it's just simple to sit and breathe and do it. But there are so many great apps now with guided meditations. And I know a lot of people that aren't good with focusing their mind or letting their mind go for a while. That could be a really great place to ease into meditation too.
Absolutely. And it's such a spectrum. There's really heavily guided meditations, and I do some of these for Insights Timer, where they are very guided and they are more of a visualization and more a hypnosis almost, really
Yes, I
tapping
would say
into
more a
the
hypnosis.
subconscious.
Yes,
Yeah.
agreed.
And I think that has a unique place as well in this practice. And then, as you say, there's the completely unguided, just drop in all the way at the other end of the spectrum. And really, what I encourage people to do is find the thing that works for you. And I believe, and the way that I teach is that establishing an understanding of what it's like to be in being, and the technique that I teach is a being technique. Uh, that is like a very strong foundation for any other type of mindfulness practice, including journaling. So, walking meditation, just walking through nature and noticing, like these are all mindfulness practices that can all be amplified when you have that depth of awareness of what it's like in terms of being.
Being. Ah, I love it. That's so great. So I will put links to your beautiful journal and the Studio for the Soul, and of course your website too. And it is always such a pleasure to talk with you. And thank you so much, Justine.
And you, thank you so much, Renee, for having me back on.